So I took a couple days to go ahead and embrace being nonverbal, and I have to do that every once in a while. If I don't lean into it when I'm called into being nonverbal, it's going to be happening with or without my consent. And the more I resist it, the more inconvenient that, lack of consent becomes. So I went with it and I allowed myself to hermit for several days. And by the time I came out of my hermit phase, it was um, chest blazing with a lot of big feelings about the performative nature of Women's Day and how the original construct as a workers' day has so deeply become bastardized into a exhibition of female empowerment and gender expansive erasure in like as just hand in hand. It's really hard to find a pro woman post that isn't pro woman, anti man, and nobody else exists. And even the matriarchal posts that are like, we sent our children, okay, but you never, ever, in any of your other posts that I see, and I go back through to confirm, that there's no mention of gender expansive folks, non binary, two spirit, agender, nobody beyond the binary is acknowledged, even remembered to exist. And that's a problem. You can't lead the way forward if you can't even remember that it's not a 50-50 population. Intersex people exist, and non binary people beyond the binary exists of many nomenclatures. And it's something that's just, it's exhausting every day, but it's especially been exhausting lately with the whole performance of gender wars that, again, erasure of anyone outside of this, you know, really poorly, like it's just a battle of dysregulation going back and forth. And I, for one, was dysregulated yesterday and popped off a little bit, and I'm not apologizing for it. I've realized I don't regret it. I might have done some stuff differently, but I don't have regrets because nothing I said was wrong or a lie or false. And so there's nothing there for me to apologize for. It's just that it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable to face the fact that a lot of y'all keep forgetting non binary people exist of all nomenclatures. And that's colonial bullshit. Colonialism is what led to the erasure of indigenous cultures that have, for time immemorial, embraced non binary identities. And it's especially been prevalent with the imperialist colonization of the last several hundred years in the United States against indigenous folks of Turtle Island to establish the colony of the United States, excuse me. And then, in so many other instances too. You can go back to at least the 1600s and see accepted use of the non binary they. I'll just leave it simplified as that. I won't get into the whole like jargon because it's not necessarily going to help anybody. And really, we do need to work on that. We need to work on letting go of preconceived and learned notions of what these constructs actually entail and how they are so integrated into the way that we perceive the world that people are forgetting that entire populations exist. This is how able-bodiedness and able-mindedness can easily lend itself to the erasure of disabled experiences. And um, the closer you are to the archetype of uh, Eurocentric white supremacist hierarchy, the closer you are to the pinnacle, the further you are seemingly removed from the lived reality of the most marginalized people. It's not exclusive to cishet white women and men, but they definitely have, a lead in the races, for sure. Um, However, it's obviously not simply just cishet white men and women either. Um, at least half the folks that I have to say, excuse me, you're forgetting non binary people exist again, are folks who do not fall under that umbrella. And So it's not just a conversation that we need to be having in any one space. And I think that's part of what gets my biscuits so burnt up is that, we'll talk about spaces being super progressive, and yet we are forgetting, and yet we are erasing, and yet we are, you know, ignoring. And you can't say that you're centering children when children also are born non-binary and intersex. To say that it's a matriarchal society that centers children is like the goal and people are getting it wrong. Yes, but if you're not including non-binary people in there, then you're going to perpetuate cycles of harm. If you don't unpack the problematic systems inside of your own thinking and perceptions, you're going to perpetuate systems of harm. It is necessary to slow down, pause within any given moment, and recognize what role could be played in either upholding or dismantling imperialism, internally and externally. And this whole push, 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 rush, 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 consumerism, productivity is designed to keep you from pausing and thinking about the ways that we are reinforcing empire in our day-to-day lives. And so, it is exhausting to have that conversation on literally a daily basis. It's exhausting to live in circumstances where I have to remind people I exist on a daily basis, and that is a lived reality, and not one I chose because of any reason. I didn't choose to be non-binary. I didn't choose to be intersex. I didn't choose any number of things. People can choose how they are perceiving and engaging in the world. And if I seem reactive, it's a response to perpetual patterns of harm that I see in even the most well-intended communities across the board. It's exceptionally rare to find folks who consistently name and include gender expansive people. And it's one of the biggest ways that you can undermine empire, because empire relies on binaries and dichotomies. It relies on that false structure of gender war where, if you really want to have it, then just take each other out, because then at least the rest of us who aren't tied up in that bullshit aren't going to have to deal with it anymore. It's one or the other. You can't keep perpetuating the systems of harm and say that you're for the people and for the most marginalized and radical leftist scum. It's incompatible. It's incongruent. There's no cohesiveness there. There has to be cohesiveness for there to be congruency and compatibility. See where there's a lack of those things in your life, install integrity, and see how much better things get. Including the quality of the people around you. And yes, it's not as charming and whimsical sometimes, but my life is plenty charming and whimsical. I don't need pop celebrities and dichotomies based on false social constructs to get my jollies, and I really wish that more of us could lean into that. It'd be a lot more regulated for everyone. It seems boring, but trust me, being on the witnessing end of all the bullshit is quite exciting in and of itself, and there's plenty to unpack. So I will share a tag of the event from yesterday for anyone who wants to know the other components. It's mostly what I said just now, with a lot more intensity and from the heart roughness. But I'll link that in the bottom, or in the caption in the body of this. And yeah, which is also the same area where you can find the transcript available in addition to the captions that should automatically load. Thanks for having some tea with me. Oh, and thank you so much for the words of affirmation and support that I did receive yesterday. I'd be remiss to miss out on the opportunity to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I felt seen, heard, recognized, and it's so reassuring that the people who needed to hear and see the words of validation also were able to share them with me. It was lovely. Thank you. there's going to be more of this conversation coming forth.